hype will only get you so far. So this book came onto my radar because of crazy Amazon sales. And I think that's the wrong way you should approach a book, by the value, the monetary value of the book. This book was getting like $200 on Amazon. But because of that got the snowball rolling. People thought, wow, if it's worth that much money, why? Why is it worth that much money? We're American, right? If it costs more, it must be worth more, and therefore I'll hunt it out. So a lot of people did. And it wasn't just getting a lot of money on Amazon, it was getting a lot of money on eBay, and then it started to pop up on the social media scene. A lot of people were sharing images of the cover and talking about the book and asking about it. And again, those are for the wrong reasons. Those are either trophy hunters or people that just want a novelty or just want bragging points, all that stuff. But it gets further intriguing because it was a book, the only book by an author who had passed away and had been long out of print. And when you read the premise of the story, it sounded brutal. So here are all the ingredients of a taboo read. Is the content of the book that forbidden? The forbidden fruit? So everybody's going to go looking for it. And notably, that's how the book got my attention. It had been compared to Girl Next Door by Jack Ketchum, which is a very brutal book. I haven't read it yet. And so it lingered there. But because I'm not a secondary market guy, I don't like to pay those values, those markups. And I'm not a trophy hunter. I'm a reader. I love the written word, so I like reading it and enjoying it. I put it in the back burner, put it off to the side. It was a novelty to me. But then Centipede Press chose to publish it, and I unboxed it for you on this channel not too long ago. Now, it's interesting because I unboxed it not too long ago, and now I already have a review for you, which means that, yes, the hype got to me. I was curious enough about the book to buy it, and still so curious I had to read it. Was it as good as the hype? And I'm here to tell you that no, it wasn't as good as the hype. It was better than the hype. The hype led me to believe that it was just exploitation of horror. It was extreme horror, gruesome, torture porn, gratuitous stuff. And I know what you're thinking. You're like, well, Jeff, you still bought it and you still were dying to read it. So if those were your perceptions of the book, you still jumped in, right? Well, I did because Jared published it. And when Jared or Paul Suntup or Paul Miller or Paul Fry or Brian James Freeman take on a work, it lends credibility to me. It's okay, this is a bona fide book that deserves my attention. So it can't be just exploitation. There has to be something in the book. So I'm here to tell you that yes, there is plenty to this book, more so than the premise hints at. And what is the premise? The premise is that there is a group of kids who capture, imprison their babysitter, and then torture her. And that's what I went in knowing about the book. And that is essentially the gist of the plot. That's what happens in the book. But the way Mendal Johnson writes the book creates all these layers. First of all, there are many children involved. So each child, each tormentor brings their own perspective as to why they're doing it, what are their motives, what are they hoping to get out of it, how do they see this victim. And I think that's brilliant because now we're getting a 360. We're getting a wide range of views on what these kids committed themselves to. And they are kids. They're just kids. So if you've taken any child psychology courses, you know that there's a lot of time it takes to develop the empathy for other humans. It's not the easiest, it's not the most innate thing in people, as scary as that is. Empathy is something that comes with experience. And these kids are in that gray zone. They're feeling what they want, they know what they want, and they kind of only care about that. There are brutal scenes in the book. There are parts of the book that are just, oh man. But a lot of it, the first half, I could see a lot of people being upset with is being a slow examination of events. This is a lot of pondering, pontificating, discussing. These kids have meetings about what they're doing. They argue about what should be done going forward. But then the second half of the book is where a lot of that action takes place, and it just rolls. It just rolls over the reader. And the whole time you're reading the book, when it's a first reading, you're sitting there thinking, well, I can imagine how this book could end. It could end any number of ways. The author is leaving a lot of discussion up front to indicate that nothing has been determined yet. Any number of things can happen. And as a reader, you're going along with that until the ending. And I'm not going to spoil anything for you, but once you get to that ending, and you know what happens, and you've come through the whole experience, you have a deeper appreciation for the first half of the book, and you're kind of shocked at how it all turned out. And I think rereading the book will create a more brutal experience, because all the doubt and all the wonder of how it could turn out is erased. You know how it turns out. Now you will be in every moment leading up to the end. You'll be able to focus clearly and pick apart what each character is thinking, and knowing how they behave in the end will create a much darker vision, a much bleaker vision for the book. Now, if you're going into this book thinking it's extreme horror and that's all it is, well, you'll be disappointed. And if you go into the book thinking it's simply a psychological study of what kids are capable of, you'll be disappointed as well. It's both of those things. There are some very graphic elements to the book, and there are very academic 30,000 feet views of human behavior. So it's all of that, but it's not dominated by the gore or the horror or the grisly bits. I think it's a brilliant book. I'm glad Jared published it, and I was able to get it for far less than the $250 it was fetching. Valancourt also did a paperback edition, a reprint of it, so you can check that out if you don't want to get a hardcover from Centipede Press. But the Centipede Press edition is still available in the unsigned, well, as of this posting. If you're far, far into the future and it's too late, I apologize. But there are many more affordable options out there now, and it's a great book. I wonder what Mendal Johnson could have done had he lived and written more books. It's a brilliant book. It reminded me in some ways of The Collector, and I think if you understand that reference, the John Fowles book, you'll have an opinion, if you've read that book, on whether or not you'll like Let's Go Play at the Adams, because The Collector is it's a very frustratingly slow book for some people. And I thought it was absolutely genius. And I feel that way about Let's Go Play at the Adams. So go check it out. I give it 4.5 stars for sure. It was very close to a perfect book, but I think I'm going to have to settle for highly, highly recommend this book. But just go in knowing what you're going to get. Hopefully my review didn't spoil anything for you and also gave you a good sense of my opinion. But I love books like this that get beneath the what of happening, get to the why. There are some things in this book that I'm like, what? Like there was a scene where the babysitter's reaction to something that's done to her doesn't quite jibe in my mind as believable. I just couldn't see somebody processing something like that without a better explanation of why she processed it such a way. So that was one kind of stumbling block. But as a study in aberrant psychology, this is a great book. I would have loved to seen a sequel to this in some capacity. So challenge to authors out there who want to pick up a work and carry it off, because I think there's a lot to mine from what's in this book. So highly recommend. Go check it out. Let me know if you've read it and what you think of it. I could see how other people could take the book a different way, but for me, I loved it. 4.5 stars-ish. Sometimes there's hype for a reason, man. I could see this book, especially for the time it was written, being extra shocking. It was first published in 1974. I think by the standard of that day, the world probably had never seen anything like it. So go out, check it out. Hope you found the review a little helpful, insightful. Someday I hope to read The Girl Next Door and compare the two. They're always getting matched up, but I'm afraid. I'm afraid of reading that book. I think they're both based on a very real episode, which is probably the worst horror behind any of this you can imagine, that people actually did this stuff. So on that note, pour something tasty, hug someone you love, be good to each other, and stay frosty.